you are a smart guy, or or we could say you're smart in very, in certain ways, and
Oh, oh, oh,
you have an
Joel, I have a long history of being dumb and making bad decisions, especially when a redhead is involved. So, it's very kind of you to say that.
Well, listen, I can't. I see. I would never say that as a as a as a former redhead myself. I would never impugn redheads.
Laughter dances with truth in mostly fictional tales, where reality and fantasy engage in a tango. Greetings and welcome to Mostly Fictional Tales. I'm your host, Rathgar, and today we dive into the transformative world of hypnosis with our guest, Joel Elfman. Joel is a distinguished hypnotist and life coach, and he has firsthand seen the power of the human mind. Joel's work underscores a vital truth. We possess more power than we think to achieve genuine happiness. In this episode, Joel will share stories and insights into how hypnosis can unlock hidden potential and bring about profound change. Join us as we uncover the mysteries of the mind and journey to self-empowerment with Joel Elfman.
In all my multi versions of myself.
That's right. You have chanced upon Mostly Fictional Tales, where we have imagined using the power of Midjourney to create versions of Joel in the very many past occupations that he has been in, environmental conditions, equipment that
some
he's.
Some of these may actually be true in some universe.
Some of them might be true in a universe. However, that's a question for above my pay grade. Talk to the Commodore about that one. Joel, welcome.
Is that Commodore Ken?
There is a Commodore Ken, but the Captain Rathgar is definitely not the Commodore. Like I said, we have Joel Elfman here on Mostly Fictional Tales, and we're very glad to have you all on board with us.
Delighted to be here.
Awesome.
So this weekend I was doing a class, taking part in a class in somatic psychology.
Somatic psychology?
Yes. So
all right. I am ignorant of what that is. I know those two words, somatic and psychology, but I can't quite testify with any level of competence. So
I mean,
tell me,
it's how our body influences our unconscious and our thoughts and our processes. So this woman, Talia Shafir, has been doing it for many more years, this particular focus than I have. But in the past several years, it has been my focus as well to notice what people are doing naturally when they're talking. They're expressing themselves with small movements, how they hold their breath, gestures, and can tell us so much about what's going on. If someone's overwhelmed, oh my God, look, they're showing us that thing is really close, right on top of them, and probably pretty big. And if we could make that image and make it smaller and send it further away, oof, you'd have some breathing room.
Same
thing. Somebody at one point was talking about seeing this schedule, this whole video of executions happening one after the other.
Oh,
he was literally nodding his head in the sequence of each beheading he was seeing.
Oh, wow. So he's caught up in, let me see if I understand this. This fellow that you're talking about, let's give him a name. Can we call him Charlie?
Charlie.
All right, Charlie's not his name, but we're going to call him Charlie. All right, so Charlie has going on in his head kind of a loop of a very distressing loop of memories, or not memories,
Or
but
it's a
like
dream. It was a dream sequence
like,
of being trapped.
and he's having this like in waking life.
He's recounting it. He's telling us
Okay,
about his expressing his dream.
so he's having it. It's causing him distress. I'm imagining that it's a lot like an earworm. When you get a song stuck in your head and you can't quite get rid of it, and it starts to annoy you that you can't think of any other song.
Well, I don't know if that's particularly true in this case. We
Okay.
had been asked the day before to remember a dream, write something down. So this is one. I don't know if it was one. It might have been an old dream, because some people presented dreams that they had. Someone I think had a dream from 20 years ago. So what was interesting was, as I said, his head was nodding like each with each beheading. He was kind of, it was a sequence, that clip, and he was showing the pace and speed.
Wow.
So one of the things I do is, and he's not really moving the rest of his body particularly much. I mean, nodding a little bit, but so what happens if we introduce different movement? What happens if we slow the head down or speed it up? It's the experience is going to start to change. So that's where um, somatic psychology kind of can look at this and look at many very other different elements.
So
And
how does somebody practice this somatic psychology? Because you're kind of picking it up as a tool of something to watch for when you're talking to somebody who is seeking your help.
mhm. Yeah, so just looking always for different ways. Again, that person, that's why I call what I do body mind hypnosis, because the body is part of the unconscious. And it's telling us often things that are going on or where things are held. So I don't want to just deal with the, like do talk therapy or even straight hypnosis at times. People have trouble sometimes expressing what's going on in their head, but sometimes it's much easier to express themselves with a gesture, with a movement. Right? So one of the things we did in this particular segment of the class was, oh, what are some of the different elements in that dream? And then speak from that element, right?
Hmm.
Speak as if you were the dungeon. Speak as if you were the executioner. Speak as if you were the axe of the executioner. What does that part have to say? And each piece gives us different information and may help us move through.
I kind
So
of have always thought that the value in the therapy of that is being able to interrupt these loops that we find ourselves in, most often of our own creation, through our expectations with others not being met, or our expectations having been set in incorrect fashions, and that we.
well, yes, and I don't want to say incorrect fashions. Look, when the building is on fire, you head for the nearest exit
Mm-hmm.
or the best exit you
That
think
you
that is
think
good for
of.
you. That you think of that is good for you in that fraction of a second that you have to make this decision. Like you don't have 20 minutes to go check out all the exits
Yeah.
and then decide which one is the best. And you know what? If the best exit is you're on the third floor and the best exit you can see is a window, well, you know what? I might survive a 3-story drop, but I ain't gonna.
Oh, yeah, that's
But I
not going to
ain't gonna.
feel good, but yeah.
But I may survive if I do it. But I ain't surviving if I just sit here and get consumed by flames. So you make the choice, right?
Ooh,
So it's
what a
what.
sharp choice to be put in the middle of. One that I am
Right.
glad that I
It
never
is
have to
still
do.
it is still in the best choice in the moment, and this is what we're doing all the time in these perceived threats. Like, how do I get away from the danger? How do I get the best result that I can think of? And how can I do it as quickly as efficiently to get away from this bad thing? So it's kind of three, it's like this little three prongs that we're always trying to balance out. Same way, like, oh man, I know how to cook a really good meal and I could spend, half an hour to an hour making it, or it's late, was there at work too long. I can stop at the pizza place and get a slice of pizza.
Well, I've
Not the
made
best
that
result,
choice.
but it gets me. It's minimal effort and gets me some results
Hmm.
and gets me away from hunger. Right. So if I'm not willing to sit there in the bigger picture,
Hmm.
right, and think about, well, maybe that's not the best thing for me. Spend a little extra time, a little extra effort, and I can start to lose weight and get healthier. So then, again, it's those choice points. And then some of the stuff we learned in those moments, like if you're good at something, that's a set of strategies or beliefs or decisions you learned over time that are getting you great results.
Hmm.
And you kept on just, oh, it worked well once and then it worked well another time and it started to become a set of rules for you.
You know
And
what
where
we
the
should.
problem
Hmm?
happens, right? But there's a certain point sometimes where that great decision, like, it's not really working the way it used to.
Uh,
I just kind of feel like, oh,
uh-huh.
maybe I should have done things differently. So that's when we have to go in and look. And again, this great piece you've been having, it's not working the way it was before. It's not getting you as good a result, as good a feeling. So now maybe we have to change it up. It can be challenging, right? These things are like automated. So that's again where we have to step back. We have to kind of get centered. We have to breathe a little, and then we have to kind of start to play, to explore. And you should do a little bit. Let me try. What happens if I just do this a little bit differently, and then a little bit differently, and then a little more? So we have to kind of, but a lot of times we need to practice and to build this stuff because, you know, it ain't going to happen overnight.
No.
A lot of times, I mean, listen, if our body, our mind is really ready for it, and all of a sudden that insight crashes over, and like, what have I been doing? But how often do those happen versus, spending time doing the doing the practice to build this new habit, this new way of being? And we have to be kind and we have to be patient with ourselves. We have to understand, like, our brain and body's been trying to take care of us, right? And whatever it's been
As
doing,
best as it
now
knows how to.
the best it knows how. Hey, look,
Uh-huh.
here's something we can do better, but kind of have to give it time. We have to practice. Sometimes we have to work. A lot of times we have to work with somebody because you know what? The minute it starts up, like we're in it. We're no longer in control of that decision making power. Okay? We're, oh, I mean, it's late. It's tired. Oh yeah, oh, all of a sudden there's a slice of pizza in your hand. When, oh man, I meant to cook tonight.
Now, there were
It,
some steps in between the decision to not cook and to get that lush,
yeah, but those
lovely.
are all so automated, right?
Uh-huh. Yep. 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 Yep.
They
Yep.
go so fast, we don't have time. And that's again why if we start to slow down the process and notice all the pieces to notice more of the pieces are happening, and we start to first create awareness, and we start to create choice, and then we start to, practice this stuff. If you look at what we're doing, this realistically, we are recreating experience. How did you get good at what you're good at? How did you get good at this bad habit? Same thing. It's like I kept on running into situations, right? Slightly different versions, and I kept on applying these set of rules. And then I get again and again to wider, different possibilities. Like you with Mid Journey, right? First, you started with just a little bit of experimentation and you kept on learning. You kept on learning how to change up the prompts and do things different ways, and
Yeah.
adding it onto this thing you're doing with Cyber Ninja and all the other elements, right? That was experience.
Yeah, in order to build the show that we're doing here, all of those little tools are kind of coming together to create the backdrop and all of the things that you see behind
Now
us.
you've done that deliberately, but other stuff we're good at, job or hobby or some other hobbies or other things, we just kept on experiencing over time,
Yeah.
random kind of different versions of it. right? And that's how we got good at it.
How does hypnosis allow somebody to get into that recurrent pattern?
Well, okay, so first we can talk about standard hypnosis, but
Hmm. Yeah,
we
this
have so
is a
many myths.
segue into us talking about hypnosis because, when I met you, I was immediately enamored. Like, I've actually never chatted with a hypnotist, somebody who is professionally trained and actually doing it for people and seeing how it's beneficial and how it's not. What are the misconceptions of it? What are things it does well, what it doesn't do, what are really embarrassing, misnomers about what it can do. I thought this
Well,
is all, Joel is going to know a lot of this awesome stuff. So,
yeah. Well, here's the interesting thing, right? I came to hypnosis a lot of with the same misconceptions that a lot of people had, right? So I saw an offering for a free course in one of these new age shops, and I'm like, oh my
okay.
god,
Well, usually when
are they going to make me cluck like a chicken, or am I going to sign a paycheck away, big life
oh,
saving? Well, no, I was in this new age shop just
okay.
browsing around, and one of the free newspapers was advertising a half day class in hypnosis, and like I said, I had the usual knowledge that a lot of people had,
Yeah.
especially 20 plus years ago. It's like, oh, are they going to make me look like a chicken? Am I going to sign away a paycheck? And it's like, I'm not sure about this. But, I was kind of more nervous and shy back then. I said, let me check it out and see what it's all about.
So the
So,
class that you were joining, was this a class for you to be hypnotized, or was it a class to teach you how to hypnotize people?
to learn about how to hypnotize people. But
Okay.
you're typically in these classes, you are practicing with your fellow people in the class. So
Okay.
you're hypnotizing them, they're hypnotizing you. And so that's started to learn about that. And then I was worked as a paralegal for many years. So while I was being a paralegal, I started to get really interested and took more classes and more classes and hypnosis and NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and was doing some other stuff as well at the time till it came to a point where something came up at work where I was a little behind in my billables, and the review was okay, but it's like it just raised for me. It kind of was the spark, like, well, do I want to keep on doing this, or do I not want to keep on doing that?
Hmm.
So that's kind of where I decided, you know what, maybe it's time to me to make a career out of this. So,
Mm.
and I've really enjoyed it. I mean, it's had its ups and downs. If I had to do it again, I would probably do it a little bit differently, but that's more on the business and marketing side of things. But I love helping people, and I'm
Hmm.
just always amazed by people's imagination
So
and what
the
they can come up
hypnosis
with.
to you is a tool that you have amongst other strategies that you use when you're approaching people and the
Right.
problems
And,
that they
and
have.
so for me, from my, we could say, oh, usually it's like, oh, well, when your brain slows down in this particular rhythm,
Relaxation.
brain number, measured brainwave activity, that's they call trance. From my instructors, I learned a broader definition where it's focused attention and altered state of reality.
Hmm.
That's the way it's been described. So anytime you and I are talking, when you're telling a mostly fictional tale or someone with you is telling it, right? And the person listening is kind of starting to visualize that inside their head or have some experience listening to music, watching TV. For me, these are all versions of trance.
Okay.
Anytime you're again having this different experience in your body and you're kind of paying attention to that, that is trance by the definition I use. So a lot of the work can be very conversational versus, sending people into one of these trances where they go, nodding off
Mm.
and they're just inside their head.
Okay.
And these days, again, now we're playing more. Okay, so just imagine that gesture, that movement, show how this problem makes you, react, or what's it like when you're more resourceful. So again, those are all, for me, elements, different versions of trance.
So, like when somebody can be kind of in a tranceful state, and
Mhm.
this is kind of a repiping a bit of what you just said, but if somebody is watching a very engaging narrative, like on TV, for whatever reason, that also sends them into this kind of this trance state a little bit.
Yeah, isn't it? I mean, when you're caught up, you're having that experience. Isn't that trance? Isn't that?
A little bit. I'll tell you something that occurred to me just as you were talking about that. I am a big fan of the sci-fi show The Expanse.
Mhm.
I think it's probably the best science fiction that has been crafted by our Hollywood entertainment machine for the last 20 years. In it, they take great amount of because showing people in zero gravity is so technically difficult, or it has been up until a lot of visual effects and other tricks that they use on set in order to achieve those effects, come down to whether or not the people who are creating the show want to create this immersive experience. And an example of this is there is an early episode in the series called QCB, which stands for Close Quarter Battle. The protagonists, they are all on a ship that is being boarded by another force, and they have to get themselves to a runabout craft and escape. And they are taking fire as they are trying to get across this gantry. And I'm watching them go on into it, and the seamless way that they are in zero gravity because the boarding party has cut the thrust of the ship. And so now none of the people on the ship have anything gluing them down except these fancy magnet boots. And they've got to get across this gantry, and they're taking fire. And at some point, two characters lose their grip to that gantry, and they're just floating, vulnerable. They're not going to get in where they need to get to. And one character lassos the other one and uses Newtonian physics to do for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. He kicks off that other character, gets himself planted on the deck, and pulls her down to the deck as well in order for them to get out. And man, is that sequence to me just so immersive that I'm looking at all the details and fascinated because I see they are not showing the standard, oh, we've got artificial gravity and all of this. They've got this world that they built. And so I'm
You're watching
transful
it. The
state.
interesting is, so what you're doing is very conscious because of your interest in filmmaking, right? And so you're watching it on multiple levels.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
You're watching it as the director, you're watching it as the enthusiast,
I'm the sci fi
you know,
nerd. Mm-hmm.
sci-fi nerd. So all these elements. Now, I saw some early episodes, and I've heard really great things about it, and I haven't gone back to it. Part of it is I don't understand like all these different sci-fi. Why is everything always gray and blue and like all these washed out colors? It drives me nuts.
Okay,
So I
okay.
just I just stopped, like Battlestar Galactica was the same freaking thing. Like they're all doing it now. I don't know if it's changed, but it drove me crazy. I just can, for me, those elements were.
There's gonna be a bit in that because when you when the show takes place in a metal box that is
Yeah.
trying to keep the vacuum of space from ripping the oxygen away from you, it's
But
it
that's not true. It could. I mean, there's no reason it can, like, everything can't be painted white or something else.
well, yeah,
It's like so. So they made these choices about it. Seems to be a standard science fiction trope in some ways that we're going to use these, we're going to
Well,
use these colors, which is okay, which is fine. Look, I'm a huge science fiction and fantasy reader. I don't, for the most part, watch a lot of the movies because most of the movies are devoted to special effects.
yeah,
I'm much
yeah.
more interested in the race and the culture and love when they really do some wonderful emotional depth about characters.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the standard big time special effects movies, like I've seen a Marvel movie or two, but most of them I haven't seen.
We really do kind of live in the golden age of content, where there is wonderful content, almost too much to be able to see. Any other one person cannot reasonably see everything that is being produced. That is awesome. There's stuff that waits you on that show. You will see that most of the show does revolve around the industrial people who are living and working in space. And, for every kilogram that you want to lift off of Earth, if you need a kilogram of paint, you might really want more of a kilogram of water. The rocket equation is a bitch.
But I've heard really good things about the show, and I probably at some point should spend a little more time watching it. But we'll see. There's so many things.
You do see that when they are in places in other rigs that. Like one scene does take place in a sequence of scenes in a pleasure yacht owned by a very rich fella, and it has blues and greens and wood paneling and stuff that makes it look like you're in a normal environment and not in a gray metal box. So yeah. But yeah, the attention to detail about the difference between thrust gravity and centrifugal gravity and gravity on a gravity well on a planet, they're all different, and there are ancillary effects about it, and that they put
Right,
that
and
into
for
the show.
some people that's going to be fascinating. For some people, not.
Yeah.
Not so much.
For
But
me,
anyway,
I'm a nerd, so
going backwards. So you asked about hypnosis. So again, when we're in these trance states, right, we're not running our automated pattern, or we're not running it at the usual speed. So we have time to look, to feel, to sense into it, to try something different. So that's the real advantage of uh, standard kind of putting somebody into a deep trance, or just even another kind of trance, right? It's even, again, if it's conversational, you're having people move differently and experience it differently, it's all good, right? They're getting new bits of information. We're changing something up. So we have the potential, right? We're just experimenting. We don't always know what's going to work, right? But as we try to experiment to change some of the elements, then we can get a different results. And then that result has to be practiced. Then we have to run it through somebody's head. But the fascinating thing is, how long have we imagined? Years or centuries, whatever it is, in moments at times. So imagine doing this once, imagine doing it 5 times, imagine doing it 10 times. And each time you do it, and now it's deeper in your body. You have a little more experience about doing it again. Imagine doing it 100 times. Are you sure you did it 100 times? Your brain runs through it, checking really fast. Did I do 100? Okay, yeah.
I often, when I am getting ready to record something that I have pre-prepared, I will read through it, not even trying to memorize it. I will literally read through it 10 times, but separate each time by a good 5 to 10 minutes. I'll put myself on a timer so that I will walk away from it, and then when I come back to make sure I know where how many times I have, I just increment up a number on there, to give myself a scorecard so that I know where I've
But
gone.
that's great. You've given start to settle into your long-term memory, and to start to process it in different ways. So again, we need that break to reestablish. Now, in some of the body work, body mind centering, and some other systems. But literally, the first thing, the first movement, as an infant, right, is yield, right, to relax a little bit, to let things settle in, because I can't stretch any further if I'm already stretched all the way out, right? So I have to give a little bit so that I can make that next movement.
My understanding is that it's not really all that possible to put somebody in a trance state or hypnotize them if that is not something they are willing to do. On some level, somebody needs to be saying, I am willingly suspending my disbelief so that I can sit here and get the benefits of this mental exercise, right?
Well, again, if we're engaging like this and I'm starting to tell you a tale and you're involved in listening to what I'm saying,
please,
level,
it is the name of the show.
Right, at some level, you chose, right, okay, I'm going to choose listen, and then I'm describing things. He's like, oh, let me try that on. Before you know it, you're like fully engaged in that story. Did you give me permission? Like explicit permission?
Sure. Okay. There's a little bit of a difference, but I think that it feeds into the people who are the naysayers or whatever. He can't hypnotize me. Well, no, he can't. Not with that kind of an attitude.
Well, again, it depends, right? So again, like
I think this feeds into one.
Here's the deal: can I make you do something that you don't want to do?
No.
Most likely not.
Yeah.
Can I do something that violates your values? Probably not. But it's always in context, right? Again, if, I'd never shoot anyone. Well, now imagine a situation where, some prisoners broke out of a penitentiary.
Okay,
and you have a gun in in your night table that, your significant other brought, or somebody left there. And all of a sudden you hear somebody breaking the glass, downstairs. You pull out the gun or not? So it's really all it's ultimately all contextual.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could say, look what's happened over the past 10 years in the public getting even more separate from each other, right? And that's built up over time, all these different. So somebody gets more and more into that mindset of, those people are nuts.
Yeah.
Whichever side you're on.
Yeah.
And now I'm more and more willing to do something that I would never have thought about 10 years ago to that other person. It's the same thing. But so again, how did, somebody got led to it and kept on buying into the argument, right? Kept on taking on more and more pieces of it so they could get more and more, step more and more into this really different state.
Yeah.
I mean, to a certain extent, but some of this takes time, takes conditioning, right? Think about all the voices we're hearing emphasizing this point. It was just one voice. With everyone either ignoring it or talking about it differently, it wouldn't have the same impact. Now we're hearing it from multiple voices. So we could maybe call it more like brainwashing than hypnosis. But in some ways there are elements that are the same. If I can tell the story and lead you through the story, right? This is what politicians do. This is what con men do. This is like, oh, wow, man, I sat in on that talk about how to buy a condo, and oh my God, the guy got me so fired up, I signed up for the next program. Like when, if it was a piece of paper in front of you describing the program, you'd be like, no, this doesn't sound like, like something for me. There's no way I'm giving these guys money, but you listen to the tale. And they said things in a certain way that got you excited. Right? And before you know it, you're buying it. You're buying in. So
Joel Elfman here on Mostly Fictional Tales. admonishing you all out there in the audience to be aware that timeshares are not giving you a free vacation. They're putting you into a sales pitch that you are going to find very difficult to say no, even if you have no money.
Well, and this is true. That's why they still do it. Now, a lot of people these days are more aware, but still, listen, all right, I'm going to go do this thing, and I'm going to get this free meal and all this stuff, because all I have to do is listen to the pitch for an hour.
Oh, that's,
And
yeah.
after that hour pitch, you find all of a sudden you bought a timeshare. It's like,
yeah, yep.
So you chose to let them do their thing. So
yeah, it's hard even if you go in.
Again, if it violates your values, right, then someone's going to really have to tell an amazing story. And again,
Okay.
some of it is going to be over time, and again, if you keep on hearing the story over time, you buy into it more.
They come up with methods to get you to ignore that uncomfortable feeling of.
You hear the same thing 100 times. Well, maybe it is true.
Yeah, there's something called cognitive dissonance, where your mind is trying to hold into very contradictory ideas that literally that they can't both be true at the same time. So it causes you like anxiety about that, and then people find outlets for that anxiety in some way so that they don't have to confront the dissonance.
I need to get out of this, and I'm subjected to every day. So maybe I just need to take it on. And so so it's like it doesn't give me the. If I take it on, I don't have the same level of anxiety.
Yeah, it's a method of coping with that kind of a thing. At some point, somebody has to ask themselves the question, did I ever really have a good reason to believe this in the first place? And when the answer is no, they don't want to hear that. And it hurts. It's not good to
I've invested all this time and energy into, and all my friends think this way. How can I begin to, like if I'm thinking differently, whoa, that's big. And again, we see it played out through a lot of what's happening in the news today. Well, we
keep it pretty much.
They went too far. I couldn't take it on anymore, and then the rest of like another community will ostracize them or something. So I wouldn't attribute to that you're not smart enough. I think you are a smart guy, or you're. Or we could say you're smart in very, in certain ways. And,
Joel, I have a long history of being dumb and making bad decisions, especially when a redhead is involved. So, it's very kind of you to say that.
Well, listen, I can't. I would never say that as a former redhead myself. I would never impugn redheads.
No. It has nothing to do with them. It has to do with my fascination.
I might impugn orange hair, but never red.
Golly, that's funny. We have more fun stuff in the tank with Joel Elfman for next time. You have been watching Mostly Fictional Tales, and I have been your host, Rathgar. If you like what we do here and you want to see us do more, help me out in a couple of small ways. Like, share, and subscribe on this video. Small things, free. You don't need to do anything other than click a button, and it will help me, I assure you. But if you're a real difference maker, head over to Patreon and support me there. I cannot do this show without you. Until next time, I have been your host, Rathgar, and I advise you, be good, but if you cannot be good, don't be caught.